All right, SAT 7, this is passage number 4. So, looking at passage number 4, we see that we are already starting off with two different passages, which tells us we are on our fun compare-contrast section of our SAT reading. So basically what this means is that one of our passages is probably going to be for an opinion, and the other one is probably going to be against that opinion. What is that opinion going to be? Well, looking at this little paragraph we have up at the top, we see that we're talking about debates arose about whether the freedoms enjoyed by men should be extended to women as well. So looking at that, I'm guessing that one of these authors is going to be in favor of giving those freedoms to women, and the other author is probably going to be against it. Let's figure out which one is which. All right, so passage 1, first paragraph. There's a lot going on here. This author has talked about how democracy destroys or modifies different inequalities which originate in society. Lots going on here. And we see that superiors and inferiors will raise woman and make her more and more the equal of man. But, so we see this word but, that means that he's probably going to contrast whatever he's saying here. So if we read through this whole paragraph, it's kind of dense, there's a lot going on, but the main idea going on is that this author has already shown about how democracy has made different inequalities which originate in society, blah, 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 but now they're going to talk about something different. So this paragraph is kind of a transition from whatever was going on before into what we're actually talking about now. The main idea I would go with here is just intro. I don't think we're going to find a lot of important information in our questions with this paragraph, so just going to call it intro. All right, let's look at our next paragraph. So with this next paragraph, we start off with there are people in Europe. So whenever I'm reading through SAT paragraphs or through any of the passages, I circle places, I circle dates, I circle names, because those are probably going to be things that you're going to have to come back to. So we're looking at Europe, and we see that in Europe, they would make of man and woman beings not only equal, but alike. So Europeans seem to be okay with extending these equal rights. So we go on to see they would have the same duties, same rights, same occupations, pleasures, etc. So in Europe, they are basically mixing them in all things. All right, and if we keep reading, we see that they're basically attempting to make one sex the equal of the other, but both are degraded. We may not know what this word degraded means, but if we keep reading, we could see that it would result in but weak men and disorderly women. So degraded, making them worse, like lowering their value. So main idea for this paragraph, I would say something like similar rights makes them both worse. And I write similar right equals worse both. Big tip for whenever you're doing main ideas, I love to use like symbols, abbreviations, things like that, just so you don't spend a ton of time writing it. Just saves you time. If you know what it means, that's all that really matters. All right, let's move on to our next paragraph. So far we've introduced that we're talking about this equality of men and women. And this author has said that in Europe, they're giving people similar rights, but it's kind of making people both worse off. That gives me a hint that this author is probably not in favor of these men and women having equal rights. Let's go on to our next paragraph. So now, it is not thus that the Americans, so now we're talking about the Americans, understand, blah, 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 blah. They admit that as nature has appointed such wide differences between the physical and moral constitution of man and woman, her manifest design was given a distinct employment to their various faculties. What does this mean? Well, we see the word nature, and we see they've given them wide differences in physical and moral. So nature has made man and woman very different in all sorts of different things. And they have a distinct employment to their various faculties. So when we think of the word employment, we generally think about jobs or having work. So if we're thinking about the employment to their various faculties, it's the work that they can do with these traits that they have been given by nature. So the things that they can do are very different based on nature. If we keep reading, we can see that improvement does not consist in making beings so dissimilar do pretty nearly the same things. So we would not be improving society if we make people do the same things. But, again, we see this word but, in getting each of them to fulfill their respective tasks in the best possible manner. So, this author is clearly saying that man and woman should just do the things that they are good at, because that is going to give us the most improvement. So, if we keep reading, we can finish out this paragraph, but we've pretty much just found it, right? This author is not in favor of man and woman having equal rights. So I got a little bit wordy with my main idea here, but I said if we divide duties based on natural ability. Ooh, that is a wordy main idea, but that's what they're saying, right? This author is saying if we divide their duties based on their natural ability, we're going to have the most productive society, because that's what nature said, and nature must be right. All right, so this author clearly not in favor of equality of rights for men and women. Passage 2 probably is going to be in favor of it. Let's read on. So, passage 2. Right away, we start out with this word inequality, super important. So, this whole part in the beginning, they're talking about we've had all this inequality, but mankind has outgrown this state. How great, how lovely. And if we can keep reading, we find out that we now have a just equality instead of the dominion of the strongest. So great, mankind is making strides away from inequality. But, again, we see that word but, of all the relations, that between men and women being the nearest and most intimate and connected with the greatest number of strong emotions, was sure to be the last to throw off the old rule. So we've made all this progress, but the relationship between man and woman, still not great, still not getting equality. So we can say outgrown, but sexism. That is actually what I wrote, because in my head, I see we've outgrown the inequality, but sexism still exists. We still have this divide between men and women. All right, so let's keep reading. Paragraph 2. Right off the bat, we see the proper sphere for all human beings is the largest and highest which they are able to attain. So what does that mean? Basically, it's saying that the best that we can attain as humans is where we should be. By achieving what we are set out to do and what we are good at doing, we have achieved this self-actualization. So what this author is saying now is that to let every occupation be open to all, without favor, discouragement, or any, and employments will fall into the hands of those men or women who are found by experience to be the most capable. So what this is saying now is that if we just leave all jobs open to man and women, then they will ultimately fall to who is best at doing them. So we keep seeing this too, right? If we keep reading, we will find that there should be no fear that women will take out of the hands of men any occupation which men perform better than they. So again, we're just doing this trial and we're seeing, okay, if man performs better, man gets the job. If woman performs it better, woman gets the job. So what I wrote here is that if we let women prove skill, that's an N, prove skill, we will get a productive society. Because men and women will be doing the jobs that they are best suited for. So this author is clearly in favor of this equality, letting everyone do what they are best at doing. And in so, we would get equality of the sexes. So, looking at our last paragraph, which is kind of part of our previous paragraph, we see more information that there's not only an injustice to the individual by not letting people do the things that they are best at doing, and a detriment to society. So, if we don't allow man and woman to do the jobs that they are best at doing based on whoever is just best at doing them, we're going to decrease the value of our society. So that's a basic summary of what's going on in Passage 1 and Passage 2 for SAT 7 Reading Section 4.